What's the, instead of Twizzlers, there's like this big rivalry between Twizzler and, is it called grapevines? Red vines? People feel pretty strongly that they only want one or the other. I think she's a red vines advocate. All right, so it's saying take one of these and only use a quarter. Break the whole flour and use a quarter. So I'm going to say that's 2 of those. She's not telling us we have to do this, but I have a mortar and pestle, so I'm going to go ahead and help out my blender, in part because my blender is a pretty weak blender. And this looks like it's a pretty hard, I don't know if you can see that. It's a pretty hard husked seed, to be honest. Even with this mortar and pestle, it's not really wanting to break up very well. Wow, if that didn't smell like anise before, it definitely does now. You know, I'm okay with like anise flavored candy, like licorice, but the idea of anise flavored alcohol, like Sambuca, this doesn't make sense to me. If there's any Italians in the chat, I apologize. I know that's sacrilegious to say I don't like Sambuca. Photek, so you've used, yeah, you're right. Stasia, you're right, red vines. So Photek, you've actually used the star anise. Is that what you're saying is worth the investment? All right, so we've got the cloves, we've got the anise, we need the mustard and the cumin, and then cinnamon. So it's saying half a teaspoon of cumin seeds. Cumin. So as you're building your, you know, outfitting your kitchen, the spices are definitely, you know, they add up. It ends up being quite an investment to get the spices. But it works out in the long run. You know, like when you compare it to how many meals out you would eat compared to like this cumin is going to last me at least a year or two. I don't know what the shelf life of this and like, you know, if this particular spice goes bad. But yeah, I mean, so this one did cost me $3 or $4, and all the spices that this particular recipe is calling for, it does kind of add up. But a lot of these are spices that I use all the time. I may not use the anise seed a lot, but I do use the cumin a lot. So it works out in the long run. And then we need half a teaspoon of the black mustard seed. And got a little something on that. I'm gonna rinse that off just so it doesn't start flavoring that mustard. Oh, not quite big enough to fit my measuring spoon in there. Look at the static working in there. It's a lot of static. All right, set these aside just so I don't knock them over. You know what? Those chilies are, yeah, they're starting to soften up actually. All right, and then cinnamon. It's 2 cinnamon sticks. Where did I put those? So, you know what I was reading the other day is that here in the United States, these cinnamon sticks aren't really cinnamon. Supposedly, in the United States, we allow cassia, which is like a, let's see if I can figure out a way to break this. It's kind of, kind of asking a lot of my little blender to break these. So there's a similar species to cinnamon called cassia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And that these sticks, you know, like in England and in Europe where they have like tighter restrictions on how things can be marketed, it would actually be the bark of the cinnamon plant. But for us, a lot of our cinnamon actually comes from China here in the United States, and it's from a different species of plant called a cassia. I did not know that. Supposedly, real cinnamon has a milder flavor. Fotex says, I make a lot of curry, Chinese, and spice-based foods, so you use it a lot. So again, you're saying the star anise you use a lot for curries and stuff like that? I haven't come across it yet, but I'm just now getting into like making my own curry and masala and stuff like that. Usually tend to put it in as a whole, though, for flavor, and take it out once the meal is ready. Oh, kind of like bay leaves or something, huh? That's interesting to know, Votech. I'm glad to have you in the chat and participating with the conversation. I think this is the first time you've taken part, and you are already giving us lots of valuable information. So thanks. All right, so we've got our cumin. Then we're going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of warm water. I don't know why I'm already getting out my curry leaves. I thought that it was going to call for that. So let me put 2 to 3 tablespoons of warm water in there. One water. Ooh, water. I'm going to split the difference and do half a tablespoon. I said teaspoon just then, but I was calling for tablespoons. All right, let that sit. I think it's actually been sitting long enough. Once the chili skins are slightly soft and the spices have soaked, add garlic, ginger, tamarind, coconut, and 5 fresh curry leaves to the jar. There we go. Okay. Maybe I subconsciously remembered that it was about to ask for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You guys have Sesame Street over there in the UK? Or actually, Kat, when you were a kid, you were in Poland, right? So did you guys have Sesame Street in Poland? And if so, did they do a version of that song in your language? That was one of my favorite Sesame Street songs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It had a little ball that went through like a pinball machine. It's all personal preference, really. Can't go wrong in cooking, baking. However, you do need a master's degree. It's that precise for ingredients. I don't know. We'll see if I become more confident about not being quite so precise in my measurements, but I don't have that innate ability to know, like, oh, you know, this proportion of this proportion, you know, together. Yeah, okay, all right, so I knew that Sesame was in the UK. I guess I wondered if the programming was slightly different. So, okay, they called the Count, they just called him Dracula in Poland, Cat? And was he speaking Polish or was he speaking English? Like, did they just dub it? If you can find a YouTube clip of like the Sesame Street characters speaking in another language, I know that there are some countries that do it. I'm pretty confident of that. We'll see how HBO monetizes it now that HBO controls Sesame Street. I don't know if HBO controls Sesame Street or if it's just that they're getting like first right of broadcast, but that was some interesting news a couple weeks ago. All right, so we've got our curry leaves. We're going to need a few more curry leaves later, I think, so leave those out. Let's see. How many garlic cloves do we need? It was 5 fat garlic cloves. See, I like the way she writes that, fat garlic cloves. Because most recipes just say garlic cloves, and I always go heavy. Like they say 2 to 3, and I'll put in 4 or 5 because I like the fat ones. I like more. But just like a normal voice, we were still able to hear their real voices. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. So you're actually pretty good at like hearing 2 things at once, huh? Oops, sorry, let me turn off the ringer. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right. Where do we live off? We have our cinnamon, water. We need our garlic, ginger, tamarind. So it's saying a 2-inch section of ginger. That works for me. And then 5 garlic cloves. Yeah, that was a mobile. I have a retro ringtone on it. BRB. Oh boy. I just broke that whole clove open. One, two, three. I'm going to count that as 1. Because like I say, it's calling for fat ones. My mom did a really good Grover. That was probably her favorite Sesame Street character. Grover? I don't do such a great Grover. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do... We'll call that 5. Yeah, I thought we were going to have to bust out the extra head of garlic, but that made it through. We made it through. What is that Madonna song I'm thinking of? Oh. Like a Virgin. All right. We need to shake up our garlic. Let's see, I have 2 in particular that I like to use. Works perfectly. You guys have already seen this little trick before. I learned it from Martha Stewart, but I'm sure she wasn't the first to do it. So instead of putting the garlic down and using the flat of my knife, which works really well for 1 or 2 garlic cloves at a time, I've got a bunch here. So I'm just going to put it in. It's best if you have 2 containers that are exactly the same, like mirror images of each other. But, oh look, that's what Photech is talking about. Yep. Shake it, like a Polaroid picture. Man, I'm not remembering the melodies of songs today. I'm remembering the lyrics and not the melodies. It's a tone-deaf day. Photech, where did you learn that? I don't typically watch Martha Stewart, but I do watch a lot of like YouTube cooking tips, like little short clips on YouTube. And I think Jamie Oliver, Britain's gift to the food world lately, I think he does one of the best jobs of putting out short little clips on YouTube with handy tricks. But somehow I came across a little like 1 minute long video of Martha showing that trick. I didn't shake those quite long enough. Some of them sort of still have their skin on. But you can see that that took a lot less time than if I was doing each one manually.